Welcome to The Tea with Amanda Rowley. I am Amanda Rowley. We are in the Crum 2 Plus studios, and we're going to do a little bit different twist on The Tea with Amanda Rowley. We're going to take a beat off of the election path and use this as an opportunity to do a deep dive into important issues in our community. Right now, we are talking about the Spokane new camping ordinance, and Spokane just tightened the rules on public camping. But the real question is this stricter enforcement or stricter solutions? Now, on this episode, we're going to break down exactly what the city's new emergency ordinance does, why it was rushed through, and by that I mean it was an emergency ordinance, and how it's about to change the way that people navigate public spaces. Let's take a look at just a brief overview. We're going to cue up this full screen here, a brief overview of what this ordinance does. So here's the tea on what's changed. This ordinance defines what counts as camping or blocking public access and gives police the ability to act after outreach has been offered. Now, the key word here is emergency. I mentioned this earlier. This ordinance took effect immediately, which means Spokane police can start enforcing these new rules right now. Supporters say it's about restoring order downtown and keeping spaces safe and accessible. However, critics worry it could criminalize homelessness, especially when shelters are full or closed at night. And we're going to talk through a little bit more of that. So breaking down, it defines camping and obstruction in public places. There are penalties that are associated with it, a citation or misdemeanor for repeated offenses. Again, it is an emergency ordinance, and we are going to talk a little bit about how this is going to be tracked. The city has decided it will report on enforcement data to have an educated way of continuing on with this ordinance. And so we're gonna dive right into this. So joining me is Spokane City Councilmember Paul Dillon. Thank you for joining me here on this different version of The Tea with Amanda Rowley. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Yeah, and we've got our tea. We both we are both black tea folks, so we got our Earl Grey. Go cheer. I like it because halfway through my cup, I'm gonna get.
Okay, so
tell me.
It's a nice mug too. Thank you. Yeah, I plan on taking that home.
Oh yeah, it's so good. I love it. And it's cold out. It's fall. We need that coziness. Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into it. So we want to really break down for viewers what the changes are with this ordinance, right? Historically, we had Prop 1 that passed. There were some questions about its legality. That kind of went away. And now this emergency ordinance that kind of went back and forth for quite a while, it passed in City Hall or with City Council just this week, or at the time of this recording this week. Walk me through essentially what is the biggest change that people would notice with this ordinance in place?
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for having me. It's great to be here and talk more about this ordinance that passed on Monday. And so safe and accessible public spaces, it passed as an emergency ordinance. So it does go into effect immediately, as you mentioned. And a lot of this, I think, is the result of ongoing conversations that certainly have happened since I've been in office in late 2023 and before that. Prop 1 did pass when I ran for office. It passed with almost 75% of the vote.
And what did you think about Prop 1?
I was opposed to it.
Okay.
And then I also won. So I think politics in Spokane is never a straight line. And at the same time that I was on the ballot and Prop 1 was on the ballot, the jail was also on the ballot. And it failed with almost as much as Prop 1 passed. And so it's clear that people want safe and accessible public spaces. I think we all agree on that. I think we all agree that people should not be sleeping outside, and we want people to come indoors. It's just, how do we do that? How do we get there? That's
right.
Where sometimes there's
difference
disagreement.
We see is how do we achieve that? Yeah.
Yeah, and there've been different roundtables. We passed kind of different ordinances to help address this issue, but this continued to linger. There was discussion about bringing Prop 1 back. There was debate around that. And then April of this year, the Washington State Supreme Court tossed Prop 1. They said that it was unconstitutional. It was unconstitutionally placed on the ballot.
And I think that's something that you had even mentioned in your campaign. Right?
Yes.
This can't be done. We can't do this. Right?
Yeah, I'd always had concerns about the legality of it. And that was proven right. So here we are. And the goal was to try and come up with a new ordinance. And I understand, 75% of the folks voted for it. But I would maintain that, our police department, our first responders, fire, our providers, they're really looking at this through a systems issue. And when you're telling people, well, you can or cannot be here, and Prop 1 was banning camping within 1,000 feet of the school, daycare, park, that's about 60% of the whole city. And so you could be 999 feet on maybe one side or 1,001 feet on another. There's some, I think, challenges with the enforcement and expectations that people had when they said it wasn't being enforced, when in actuality it was. So the goal was to come up with something citywide. And fast forward to the summer, as part of the home ordinance, the home initiatives, there were some different components to that, such as shelter siting, but one of that was
another emergency ordinance as well.
Yeah, and one of that was unlawful camping and obstruction. And it passed 5-2. But there was a lot of challenges with implementation. When we passed that ordinance, we did write in a 90-day review saying that we would look at the data, look at any necessary changes, and it was clear, again, that more needed to be done, and that kind of pushed this new ordinance forward.
I want to backtrack a little bit. How would you define maybe like the key differences between Prop 1, which we talked about, that banned camping in public spaces such as schools, remind me.
Daycares, parks,
within a certain radius. How is that? How is the current new camping ordinance different from how that Prop 1 would have been enforced?
So it still prioritizes those areas, and that also includes now treatment centers, shelter spaces, but it's citywide. And so really the focus of this ordinance is that outreach first. It is focused on outreach engagements, but still has the enforcement tool. And so that's really the clear difference. There's also additional language around damage to street trees, our waterways, that's part of some state rules, and then transit facilities.
Okay. So is it still that 1,000 foot radius of,
that would have a prioritized or expedited outreach to, I think, honor the intent of that original law, but it is citywide because I think we needed something that was more cohesive. As much as we often concentrate a lot of the solutions to downtown, and don't get me wrong, there's a lot of challenges downtown. I don't want to minimize those, but then we hear as a secondary impact is, well, now there's issues in neighborhoods and it gets kind of more pushed out and there's displacement. So trying to focus on something citywide was really imperative.
Yeah. Can you talk through, so we mentioned emergency ordinance, and that's something we occasionally report on, that, this is important. Can you talk through why this new camping ordinance met that emergency level?
Yeah, I think with a lot of the data that we did get back around the original ordinance with the enforcement complications, and it certainly was not the intent of when we passed that original ordinance. The original ordinance was really similar to what Bellingham had created. There wasn't like a notification period to clean up a campsite in between a citation, and officers are what we call our HOT team, our integrated outreach team that works for code enforcement. And so really trying to, I think, simplify in clearer terms how we would respond to obstruction and camping. And it really is outreach and engagement first, but there is that extra level of enforcement.
Yeah, it sounds like this was a critical thing that needed to happen.
Yes,
in our community.
Yeah.
And so it kind of prompted the need for it to immediately go into effect.
Yeah, and with an emergency ordinance, you need 5 votes. It is veto proof. It does go into effect immediately upon passage. This was an instance, I know that there's often a lot of discussion at council, whether there's ideological differences, partisanship. Every council member did have some say in this ordinance. Councilmember Cathcart had really presented his version of the ordinance. The mayor had another version. Council members came together and really collaborated. There's something that we all got in this ordinance, and there's some things that we didn't all get. And that's how democracy is supposed to work. can get messy sometimes, as we all know. But I think the end product really did result in something that was very collaborative. Is it the perfect ordinance? No, we can't let, perfect be the enemy of the good. Is it going to make things better? I do believe that. And so once we started to see that, I think there was support across the spectrum. We knew we could pass it unanimously and have it be an emergency to go into effect immediately.
And I want to ask about that. It is not often that we see council in agreement on a lot of things,
sure.
which, you have varying opinions.
Yeah.
So it's not a bad thing, but to get everyone on the same page and to get those unanimous 5 votes, whoa, that's huge. So spill the tea, if you will. How do you think we actually got everyone to agree on this version of the camping ordinance?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to communication. And so, Councilmember Cathcart, I sit next to him. We don't always agree, but we're still neighbors, right?
Sure.
And you want to keep the peace with your neighbor. And I think at the end of the day, we all recognize the challenges and the issues, right? And it goes back again to what are our common values. Like, we want safe and accessible streets. We want a clean and safe downtown. We want people to get the support and the services that they need. If
that's something everybody agrees on,
if
right?
that is our guiding sort of star, then I think that we can get there. And it becomes a lot easier, I think, to put some of those differences aside if you're rowing in the same direction.
But it seemed like it took a hot minute to get to that point, though. I mean, it wasn't smooth sailing all the way. And again, not that that's a bad thing, but there is the context of we had to navigate some rough waters to find a unanimous vote, right?
Yeah, no, it never is. But that's the beauty of this work, and that's the beauty of democracy. And I think that it had to be a sequence of events in order to get us here. I think part of that was a lot of the start and stop with Prop 1. I know that was frustrating for a lot of people, but I think the end product resulted in something better where we really could commit to trying to do something new that will be better for the city of Spokane.
I want to kind of talk about the notice period. Can you dive a little deeper into what does that look like when we're talking about this notice period?
Yeah, the original ordinance, there was a lot of debate around this, a 7-day notice, 3-day notice, and some back and forth.
And that's notice to vacate?
Correct. Yeah. If there's been, an encampment site, there's a lot of challenges with that, with just team capacity. If someone has been cited on perhaps a Thursday, how does that roll over with the weekend with staffing? And so I did a lot of research into other municipalities who had found a way to remove some of the day notice requirement that would make it more confusing for outreach teams, first responders, and people experiencing homelessness themselves. Like, hey, can I be here? Can I not? If I move down the street, does that clock reset? And quite honestly, that was one of the parts that was in Prop 1 that I don't think a lot of folks noticed and did make it more confusing.
I'm looking at our digital producer. Can we go a little bit longer? Can we? Yeah. All right. We're getting the thumbs up.
All right. Sounds good.
So
thank you.
We are. Thank you, Jared. So when we're talking about that notice, we are getting into the colder winter months. And we know that, unfortunately, resources are limited and the shelters do tend to fill up fast. So when police come to enforce under this new rule and someone asks, okay, where do we go now? What is the city's answer to that?
Yeah, we do have limited resources. If you go to Shelter Me Spokane, it has a list of all of our shelters and their capacity. We are...
How often is that updated?
Daily.
Daily, okay.
Yeah,
and is that on the, sorry, deep dive in here, is that on the provider to update or how?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Providers.
So it's directly from.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And so go to Shelter Me Spokane to help folks navigate to services. It's something that we need to continue to fine tune. But to answer your question, the math doesn't math. We have more folks in our point in time count, which is a federal requirement, than we do have bed spaces. And so we have to increase our infrastructure. We know that jail and the emergency room are an increased cost burden. They are not meaningful ways to get people to a lot of the services and help that they need. There's been a lot of good initiatives, I think, over the last 2 years, such as the respite center, the scatter site model, which is more, I think, builds that connection, and you have more of a personal case management rather than what we've seen in the past with larger kind of, well, I'll just say it, warehousing folks that does not help people get to the services they need, doesn't help with housing referrals, employment assistance, and a lot of the wraparound services for behavioral health, substance abuse. So we really need, I think, that third leg between jail and the emergency room to have a bigger navigation center. We did just increase
So like
our
the Cannon streets, or
that's
not Cannon,
yeah.
the track. I'm thinking even like track.
No, I mean, track was, I would consider an experiment that did not work, and it was very expensive. I think only about 3% of folks had that follow-up that were in track at the navigation center. There was a lot of issues with running water, infectious disease outbreak. And so
it sounds like it didn't meet that. From what I'm hearing you say,
correct.
track didn't meet that need of, yes, we're here to help you, but get you on your feet.
Exactly.
The navigation point of it, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And so down at Cannon, I'm glad you mentioned that. So that was a shelter before. It had about 30 beds. Now it is more than 80. And it is only in the daytime, which, again, is a real challenge for where do people go at night. But we are seeing a lot of success with people get into housing. They are exiting homelessness through the navigation center. And so that's a great model, but it's something that we need to expand. And I think we're all committed to trying to build up what is sort of that third option, and have a lot of those services that need to be offered.
And that leads to my next question. The way to measure the success in this, the city does plan based on this emergency ordinance, track how this is working.
Yes.
Can you talk through what that report looks like?
Yeah, it's obviously very important that we make data-driven decisions. And so working with SPD, code enforcement, and providers on that personal case management to hopefully see the kind of success that we want with people integrating into services, again, exiting homelessness.
And what is that data going to be? I mean, what are we tallying?
Yeah. I mean, you'll see it'll be a combination of some different reports. We get monthly reports from Chief Hall at Public Safety, also looking at CHHS, which oversees our homeless and housing funding, about again, what we're seeing in terms of people exiting homelessness and connecting that back to this ordinance. It's important to remember this ordinance is one tool. And when we talk about our homeless crisis, we have to talk about affordable housing. We have to talk about behavioral health, substance abuse, boosting those services, a lot of the great work that's happening with our first responders to better integrate, I think, our system, where in previous years we saw a lot of siloing. We didn't see different departments working together in the way that we are now. And quite frankly, I think we are seeing, as proof of the ordinance on Monday, council be more collaborative in trying to solve this issue.
Now, you mentioned Chief Hall. There is some penalties associated with this ordinance. Can you talk through what the citation? I know we've had misdemeanors involved. What is that?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is still to try and get folks to community court, because community court is a very important alternative to incarceration. That is really an inflection point where people, I think, can try and avoid those penalties by a restorative process. But there's still going to be that option, right, for a misdemeanor. And I think ultimately, I know that can be scary. That can damage, your rental opportunities, employment. It's certainly something that is going to be a challenge, but at the same time, we do need to have that as a tool in the toolbox. And unfortunately, that's where we're at.
One thing I always hear when we talk about addressing helping people who are unhoused is the work's not done yet, right? There's
Yes.
no one answer that fits every scenario.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that's on that.
Yeah. There's no endpoint, but part of that data sequence, I think, is looking at the point in time count, looking at again, the population that hopefully we are exiting out of homelessness. We are breaking records for permitting. We keep expanding affordable housing. We're seeing a lot of positive trends. We're seeing our overdose rate start to flatten.
How do we know that?
Yeah, the Spokane County Medical Examiner
Okay.
last month presented our fire department. The public safety also reported less overdose calls, and so again, I'm hopeful that some of these initiatives are making a difference. I think the challenge is, again, sometimes that we passed an ordinance about community health emphasis area around drug paraphernalia being sold downtown. And so that's great. That's downtown. That's been to effect in a little bit. We've expanded our ability to respond to the opioid crisis with opioid settlement dollars. All of these different initiatives, they're great, right? But what do they often mean to, I think, the average person? How do they connect to those? There's not that whole story being told about how all these different initiatives kind of work under one in a way that I hope connect with people, but ultimately, I can tell you this data, I can share it with you, and that is great. But it really comes down to people, I think, seeing and experiencing and feeling a difference.
Yeah.
And that's something that can be hard sometimes to capture. But as an elected official, I do take that to heart. I always welcome feedback. I invite folks to come check out our public safety committee meetings where a lot of our own tea is spilled from the city, and we kind of dive deeper if they are interested. But don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Coming around the bend here, I want to boil this down for folks who are just trying to wrap their head around what that, and you mentioned it, seeing it and what that physical difference is. Okay, so can you give me an example of how this ordinance would play out? There's someone who is camping outside a daycare.
Sure.
What happens then? And shelters are not full.
And shelters are not full. So I think
because I know that's a key element there.
Yeah. No, I think again it would have to be a call coming in from either 311 or if an officer or provider did see something and they did want to respond in that moment, because part of it is
because it's not actively patrolling, essentially.
Correct.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that it would depend on that case, but we would have the integrated outreach team, and so that is often code enforcement, again, working with providers, and then also SPD.
So you're saying the initial response is if someone were to report that they are within that perimeter,
and they would
then
call
it would be an
311,
and then an outreach team. Is the hot team that you mentioned. They would then contact that person as the next step.
Yep.
What happens next?
Well, I think walking through some of the different options for services. Obviously, you want to look at the specifics of the situation, what would fit best to kind of triage that person in the moment, and hopefully that they would want to accept services.
If they don't accept services,
then they could be eligible for a citation.
Yeah. Shelter's full though. What if in a different scenario? How does that play out? Because we are going to those colder months, and we talked about how the resources are not meeting the need. What does that scenario look like when shelters are full?
Yeah, that is the challenge. I mean, it really is. And so, we are on Monday looking at a declaration that would open 50 more beds. And how do we increase our capacity? I think that the situation that you are describing is a call to action to build out our infrastructure so we avoid those scenarios. Because the ordinance as written, it's regardless of shelter availability. That's the sad part. It breaks my heart. It really, really does. And I'm, very sorry for folks that might have to go through that. At the same time, I think, again, we can agree that it is not good for anyone to be obstructing the sidewalk, to be impeding, I think, some access, quite frankly. And so that's where I think a lot of the challenge comes in with these laws.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you breaking all this
Yeah, of
down.
course.
It is
Yeah.
new, and it's an evolving conversation in the Spokane
Yeah.
community, and I appreciate you talking through all of that.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on this? I guess if you were to boil it down for folks that are trying to wrap their head around what all this means for Spokane, what would be your closing thoughts?
Yeah. I think stay with us.
Feel free to
on
spill
this
the tea.
ordinance,
No.
spill the tea. Yeah. An ordinance and a law that is passed, you can pass the best law in the world, and you get it across the finish line, but really it comes down to implementation. And so continuing to work with us, the mayor's office, on how we further implement this, because the job's not done, the work's not over. I really believe that Spokane's best days are ahead of it. I firmly believe that, and I think that we can get there. Again, I think we all want the same thing. We all want a vibrant city, and we might disagree on ways to get there, but if we keep, again, looking at that as our goal, I think we're going to see a lot of positive change.
Right. Well, thank you again, and thank you for joining us here on The Tea with Amanda Rowley. Hope we got cleared up a bit of confusion and, made a little more clear on what we can expect to see here changing, and we'll keep track on those reports and how this plans out for the city of Spokane. Thank you.
Thank you.